Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Brewing Classic Styles with me, your host, Chris Gallegos. Today we will continue our adventure through the United Kingdom, and last week we talked about the popular Scottish ale. And today we're going to head down south and talk about the most popular beer style in the United Kingdom, which is the English bitter. This is my favorite style of beer, and there are a lot of variations on it. The first, and the one with the lowest ABV, is the ordinary bitter, which usually comes in at about under 4%. The next is the best bitter, or also known as the special bitter, which is a little bit stronger and comes in between 4 and 5%. The last and the strongest is the extra special bitter, or more commonly known as just an ESB. And this goes anywhere between 5 and 7%. In the UK, you'll find it around 5 and 6, but Americans love a little more alcohol, so you'll find it in America around 7%. And that's the style we're going to talk about today and the recipe I will give. ESBs are essentially more aggressive and more balanced bitters, both in alcohol and in hop character, but it should be nothing overpowering, and it should have a nice balance between the sweetness of the malt and the bitterness of the hops. And the one thing I like about bitters is that if you don't hit your numbers and you mess up a bit, it might be another beer, another type of bitter, because there's all those that go from the lowest ABV to the highest, that if you mess up, it'll just be another bitter. And a story I have about that is earlier this summer, I wanted to make my favorite beer style, the ESB. And so I went to the homebrew store, I got all my ingredients, and I milled the grain there. Once I put it in the mash tun, though, I realized that the mill wasn't that great on the grain. There were still a lot of husks that were fully intact, and I knew that a lot of sugars wouldn't come out of it. So what I did was I tried to mash a little longer, and I tried to extract as much sugar as I could, and in the end, it ended up being pretty good. The ABV was a little lower, and so my ESB just went down to a special bitter. So even if you mess up, no one needs to know, and it's another bitter. So let me talk about the recipe. The recipe I'm going to go over today is an all-grain clone of the Fuller's ESB, and this is the most widely known version here in the United States. If you go to any liquor store, you're going to find Fuller's on the shelf. And this recipe is going to yield 5 gallons, and the original gravity is going to be 1060, and you'll finish at 1014, so there's a little bit of sweetness. IBU is at 35. SRM at 15, and your final ABV should be 5.9%. So onto the malt bill, 9 pounds, 2 ounces of English 2-row pale malt. And here I recommend Maris Otter malt. I think it's the best base grain, especially in English grain, and I use this in all my beers, not just the English styles, because it has a nice bready, toasty flavor to it. 2 pounds of flaked maize, and this helps with head retention as well as gives it some body. And then 1 pound, 2 ounces of Crystal 60. And that's it for the grain bill. Onto the hops. You can use any traditional hops from the UK. That's Fuggle, Challenger, Target, or Northdown. But my favorite is using EKG, or East Kent Goldings. And so it's 60 minutes at 0.53 ounces of Target hops, and 0.34 of Challenger hops. And then your next addition is going to be at 15 minutes left in the boil with 0.1 ounce of Northdown hops, as well as 0.33 ounces of Goldings hops. And that's where the EKG is right there. Gives it a nice aroma. And then if you're at 15 minutes there, you might as well add some Irish moss or wharflock. And what this does is it settles down all the trub, so when you rack into your fermenter, you don't have a lot of that junk going in there as well. So what we're going to do a mash at 154 for 60 minutes with 15 quarts of water, and then we're going to have a 90-minute boil. And then what you'll do is you'll cool it down to 70 degrees once you're done, and add any English yeast you'd like. There's a lot of variations of yeast as well. There's the Yorkshire yeast or the Edinburgh yeast, Thames Valley, but my favorite is just the regular London yeast from White Labs. It's White Labs 002. I like this because it has good attenuation as well as good flocculation, and it leaves some good fruity esters, which I like. So you can find these at any homebrew store, the Y Yeast 1968 or the White Labs WLP 002. And then just let that ferment for about 3 to 4 weeks, and then bottle or keg, and then enjoy. Next week, please join us where we head to Ireland and we talk about the Irish Stout. But in the meantime, please keep calm and have a homebrew.